Good morning, everybody. We are deep in what I would call the story of the first Jewish family. We are in the story of Jacob. We are reading this week Parsha Vayishlach, and he was sent. And we are in the Jacob story, Jacob being number 3, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the grandson of Abraham. And Jacob, just as a little recap of last week, because it's always good to know what's the context, right? Who are we talking about? If I say we're in the Jacob story, we're not beginning it, we're in the midst of it. So what happened last week? So we're already past the part of our Jacob story where Jacob has stolen the birthright and the blessing of the firstborn from his brother Esau. We saw that happen, and this was 2 weeks ago already. And what did Jacob do? Jacob flees. He runs away. Jacob is running from his brother, and he thinks that his brother is going to now kill him. So last week, he's running away. He goes to also find a wife. He ends up after, as we know, a series of tricky situations. Jacob now has 2 kids. He also has 2 midwives or, helpers to his wives. So he has lots of children, lots of wives. And we are now at the point where after having fled from his brother, after having stolen the birthright and the blessing from his brother, we are at the Parsha of reconciliation, where Jacob and his brother Esau have decided to meet. After about 20 years of being estranged, it is time for the 2 of them to reconnect. Now, of course, we don't know what this is to look like. They are probably both terrified. So what Jacob does, he gathers lots of gifts for his brother Esau. He's thinking, okay, haven't seen him in 20 years. Last time I saw him, didn't go so well. I wasn't too great. Let me just start by sending forward lots of gifts, cattle, and everything that Jacob had amassed over these 20 years. He starts sending over to Esau as kind of a buttering up situation. And Jacob, then we find him in a second night of a dream or a vision. Last week's story portion, we found Jacob laying on a rock and having a vision of the ladder and the angels ascending and descending. That's Jacob's vision. This week, Jacob and his wife, his children, and lots of cattle, lots of riches ahead of him. And he stays back for the last night before going to reconnect with his brother. Now, we might be thinking to ourselves, isn't that a little bit of a strange setup? Sending your wives, children, and the people who work for you first? Yes, it is strange. And yes, on another day, we could absolutely talk about what does it mean for our forefather to have done that? But today, what I want to look at is a pretty famous moment with the reconciliation. So Jacob, again, we're going to look at a second dream. Jacob goes to sleep. He's by himself. And the dream he has is the famous dream of Jacob with divine. He wakes up with a leg that is lame from his hip. And now Jacob is ready. He's not in his best shape. He was just up all night wrestling with a divine creature. His hip leg is now in, and he's going to cross the river, and he's up with his brother. And famous, he and his brother in this moment of reconciliation They go in for a hug and a kiss. And we think about this image of these two brothers, two men who are very different. Jacob is a shepherd, he's quieter. Esau was a man of the field, hunting. He was a male, he was red, he was hairy, he was big. Jacob is a little bit of the sneaky one. And these two men, you can imagine the visual of the two of them coming closer together, Jacob walking slowly because of his leg, Esau maybe walking strong and proud. And they're getting closer and closer together. And there's no words. There's no words after 20 years of estrangement. They don't yell at each other. They don't shout. They their hearts out in verbiage. They're in whip. And the rabbis say some things happen when they embrace. On the one hand, the rabbis traditionally are a little bit anti. Now, I would like to say Esau had a bad rep. He's had a bad reputation. Esau hasn't really done much to get this bad reputation. I mean, after all, he wasn't the one who stole the birthright. He wasn't the one who was sneaky. He was just doing what he was told. But Esau in our tradition actually is seen in not such a positive light. Whereas Jacob, the trickster, he's our forefather, and we have to wrestle with that. But when Jacob and Esau go in for this embrace, the rabbis tell us that Jacob's neck turned to stone. One might think, well, why would his neck turn to stone? And the rabbis say, well, it's because while Jacob went in for a kiss, Esau, the bad guy, now remember, not really a reason for him being a bad guy, but there we are. Esau went in to bite Jacob. So Jacob's neck shone so as to protect himself. I don't love this midrash, this rabbinic teaching, as you know. One, I think it does not give Esau the benefit of the doubt. It also doesn't give Jacob the benefit of the doubt. That Jacob, having anticipated that his brother was going to harm to him, turns his neck down. That also is not a great look for Jacob. Why wouldn't Jacob and his brother benefit of the doubt? Why wouldn't Jacob have embraced his brother in a calmer way? So I want to give you an option. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I like to play out a scene as if it's on a stage. Talk out a scene, think about the emotion, what's the staging, what's the lighting, what is the physicality of this scene? Because especially in Genesis, we're in a drama. We are in the beginning of the Torah. We are in narrative drama. So we should play it out like a drama. And when I thought about this scene, and I tried to conjure up for myself, what emotional experience of Esau and Jacob in this moment, it made me think of, well, what do our bodies do when we are choked up? On the one hand, we are called a stiff people. God calls us this because we are unmoving, we're stubborn, we like to complain, we anticipate the worst, we're stiff-necked people. Yes, but on the other hand, when one has a stiff neck, could it be that it's because they're choked up from their tears, from their emotion? I know for myself, sometimes when you're trying to hold back tears, but you're feeling something so strongly, your whole body tenses up because you're holding it in. And your neck we call it being choked up for a reason because it almost like air cannot penetrate our lungs because we're so overwhelmed with the emotion of the moment. Whether the tears are flowing or the tears are being held back, it is almost as if our necks have turned to stone. And that, I think, is another option. And perhaps an option with a little bit more opportunity for kindness and opportunity for true reconciliation. Not a moment where two brothers find each other after being estranged and come at each other with the same fear and anger that they might have had, but rather they're coming at each other with so much swelling up inside of them that it's make their neck so stiff from being choked up by their tears. I think that these two readings, whether that Jacob was anticipating that Esau would fight him, that Esau was coming at him with anger, or if he was coming at him with kindness and goodness. Either one are very fair emotional responses to estrangement. Lots of families experience being estranged from a love. It could be from a child, a parent. And even after 20 years, Jacob and Esau come back together. Now, that's not always going to be the way that estrangement ends. It's one possibility. And I think that as the rabbis read it, there are many possibilities for the emotional state of the people involved. I want this actually as a plug for our mental health center, because our licensed LCSW here at Sinai Temple actually leads a group of folks who are experiencing estrangement from family members. And I want to just say that if we look at this Parsha, and that's okay. But relationships are complicated and they're really tough. And sometimes we're so choked up that we can't get words out. And sometimes we're so stiffened by our experience. That's okay too, because that's what being human is, that we live through the gamut of emotional experience. Sometimes, yes, like Jacob and Esau, there can be a reconciliation. Sometimes our paths are different. But ultimately, I think that it is helpful to watch a model, Jacob and Esau, of realness. Sibling relationships, other relationships, never easy. And that's what makes them real. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I bet you gained some nugget from this week's Torah portion. And of course, this is just focusing on one little moment. These Torah with so much goodness, so much dramatic narrative. So play it out. Think about it. And we can't wait to be together for Shabbat and to read.